Hi, on this cold Kiwi day. Um, Today I'm going to read out an open letter to New Zealand's Minister of Health, Dr. Shane Reti. It's written by Simon Tegg and published on the Genspect New Zealand page on Genspect's website. And just before I go on, I'll say that yes, I'm aware that some people have different opinions about Genspect, and I'm aware of them, so I don't really need to be educated about them. Now, Simon Tegg, he created a website a few years ago called Fully Informed, and it was about informing parents and teachers, parents mostly, and maybe health professionals about the harms of gender ideology that's specifically related to what he could research and find out, and he could put out there in an informed way. So Simon doesn't write opinions. He researches carefully and he writes what he discovers from that research. So he has written a letter, an open letter to New Zealand's Minister of Health, Dr. Shane Reti. Very good letter, and I'm going to read that out. And although it does relate to New Zealanders more specifically, of course, I'm pretty sure that others will find very valid points in it as well. So the Health New Zealand was due to put out gender-affirming guidelines, I think earlier this year, and then the CAS report came out, and lo and behold, they decided to put that report on, or those guidelines on hold while they sort of looked through CAS and ascertained the new information that had come in. And anyway, we're still waiting for it. They're really dragging the chain on this, and we're not sure why, but it possibly is because they really want to go down, double down on gender affirming aspect of it. And this has put, maybe this CAS report has put a bit of a spanner in the works of that. And even though the TQ plus lobby groups will be lobbying for all their worth to get the gender affirming aspect just firmly embedded, I would say that there are some people in Health New Zealand who have said, no, we have to press pause and actually look at this new information. So as I said, we're still waiting for it. And in the meantime, Simon Tegg has written this letter, and I'll read that out. It's very good. And before we start, I will say that I'm going to issue a trigger warning with this little video podcast. And that is that sometimes I don't say the word a woman or the words a woman and women in entirely the way or correct way that people think I should. So in my last podcast, I had a number of comments that people commented on how terrible it was, how I pronounced those words. So anyway, you'll be pleased to know that I've had a look in this letter, and there's only one time that the word woman is said. So I shouldn't be offending anybody too much. One woman even said that the way I said it, it annoyed her so much that she was out. And I guess by out meant she wasn't going to listen to me anymore. That was my punishment. However, I grew up in a family of 6 kids. So, a punishment like that is not really sort of going to hurt me too much. Just saying. Anyway, let's get on to reading this letter. Genspect's Simon Tegg has written to Dr. Shane Reti, New Zealand's Health Minister, summarising revelations from unsealed court documents and the implications for clinical guidelines in New Zealand. 3rd of the 7th, 2024. And if anyone in the States or Canada is listening to this, of course, it's the 3rd of July, 2024. This was written. Tēnā koe, Dr. Reti, and tēnā koe, and I'm probably pronouncing that very badly, is a formal Māori greeting for one person. I write to you with concerns regarding the National Gender-Affirming Care Guidelines contracted by Health New Zealand to the hybrid activist professional organisation, the Professional Association of Transgender Healthcare Aotearoa, and that's PATHA. PATHA is the local chapter of the international, but largely US-based, World Professional Association of Transgender Health, WPATH. Some members of PATHA are also members of WPATH, notably former PATHA president and current executive board member, Dr. Jamie Veal, who is also the current secretary of WPATH. Now, Dr. Jamie Veal is a man, this is me just interjecting. Dr. Jamie Veal is a man who says he's a woman. To carry on, the commissioning document from Health New Zealand states that the new national guidelines are to be drafted in line with the 2022 WPATH Standards of Care version 8, and it's commonly known as SOC 8. Recent unsealed court documents in the USA, as reported in the New York Times and The Economist, confirm that WPATH is primarily an activist organisation rather than the scientific organisation it claims to be. WPATH produces guidelines and research to advance political goals and provide legal cover for the controversial medical practices of WPATH members and has little understanding of evidence-based medicine. These court documents obtained through legal discovery include internal communications between WPATH members and reveal several concerning issues. And Simon goes on to list these in 7 points. 1. Lack of consensus and evidence. Guideline authors express concerns about the lack of consensus and evidence for SOC 8 recommendations. One author stated, "My understanding is that a global consensus on puberty blockers does not exist." When WPATH President Dr. Marcy Bowers was asked under deposition whether reasonable people could conclude that there is not enough evidence to support the safety or clinical effectiveness of puberty blockers, Bowers replied, "There is not enough high-level evidence. Yes, you can say that." 2. Loosening standards. SOC 8 authors worried that they had loosened standards and lost some control. Some clinicians were providing treatment on demand, and SOC 8 would further open that up. 3. Influence of social factors. Authors noted that social factors and immature decision-making could lead young people to mistakenly believe they are transgender. However, there was no assessment tool to differentiate between genuine and mistaken transgender status. 4. Subservient to political and legal objectives. Guideline authors lobbied to tailor the language to influence courts and legislatures, if I've said that properly, even at the expense of scientific accuracy. One author admitted, "Our concerns are that evidence-based review reveals little or no evidence and puts us in an untenable position in terms of affecting policy or winning lawsuits." 5. Conflicts of interest. The lead guideline author, Dr. Coleman, acknowledged that most participants in the SOC 8 process had financial or non-financial conflicts of interest. Dr. Bowers admitted to making more than $1 million from sex trait modification surgeries the previous year, but found it absurd to disclose this while authoring a guideline recommending such surgeries. SOC 8 readers were misled to believe that no conflicts of interest among the authors were deemed significant or consequential. 6. Suppression of systematic reviews. Guideline authors suppressed the publication of or avoided commissioning systematic reviews as reviews found that little to no evidence would undermine WPATH's political objectives. The lead of the mental health chapter testified that instead of relying on systematic reviews, they used authors we were familiar with. Another author highlighted concerns about language indicating insufficient evidence or limited data, as it would empower groups trying to claim that gender-affirming interventions are experimental. 7. Political interference. In the final days before SOC 8 publication, age minimums for adolescent hormonal treatments and surgeries were removed due to external political pressure. WPATH had shared a draft with the Assistant Secretary for Health, Admiral Levine, I'm not quite sure how to pronounce that, who identifies as a woman. In other words, this is not in Simon's letter. In other words, he is a man who says he's a woman. Levine argued that age minimums would undermine the administration's political goals. The American Academy of Pediatrics, AAP, also threatened to publicly oppose SOC 8 unless age minimums were removed. Despite their low regard for the AAP, WPATH complied, contradicting the wishes of guideline authors and the WPATH's own formalised consensus process. WPATH later falsely claimed that the removal was due to a renewed focus on individualised care. These revelations, alongside known deficiency in PATHA's existing guidelines, make WPATH or PATHA involvement in the Health New Zealand guidelines untenable. You must instruct Health New Zealand to cancel the contract and extinguish WPATH/PATHA influence in the New Zealand health system. Without your action, a young vulnerable group faces unacceptable risks of iatrogenic harm, and the scientific and moral reputation of Health New Zealand, the Ministry of Health, and the coalition government will be compromised. The previous Labour government had a well-meaning but misguided policy to ensure our healthcare system is responsive to the needs of trans and gender diverse people. And I'm just going to interject here again and say that after reading beginning to read Jennifer Billick's book, Transsexualism, I have my doubts about the well-meaning aspect of that, because she's very clear about the money aspect of it. But anyway, that's just an opinion. So to carry on. Interpreted broadly, this means policymakers sought to expand access to puberty blockers and hormones to adolescents, despite insufficient evidence for these interventions in routine use. OIA responses, and OIA means Official Information Act, responses confirmed that officials even discussed dropping psychological assessment or a diagnosis of gender dysphoria prior to an adolescent receiving puberty blockers or cross-sex hormones. But this places the cart before the horse. It would be negligent to institute a treatment on demand regime for adolescents without knowing for sure if treatments were beneficial and safe. Fortunately, the coalition government has emphasised the need for evidence-based policies and continued the ministry's evidence brief on puberty blockers. Despite the inordinate and poorly explained delay in the evidence brief's publication. I seek your reassurance that 1. PATHA or WPATH members have not attempted to influence, delay, or suppress the Ministry's evidence brief and associated position statement. 2. Health New Zealand advisors are on top of the situation and have advised you that the basis of the New Zealand clinical guidelines is the subject of a legal dispute in the USA. 3. Any forthcoming guidance on the care of gender questioning young people will not derive recommendations from WPATH or PATHA guidelines or research published in the WPATH-sponsored International Journal of Transgender Health. I also request under OIA the number of WPATH members and the number of PATHA members who are also 1. Members of Health New Zealand's Gender-Affirming Primary Care Advisory Group. 2. Authors of the forthcoming national guidelines. Or 3. Members of any third-party group that reviews or approves the above guidelines. Along with the membership totals of the above groups, I believe there is a strong public interest in understanding the affiliations of people in these positions. I appreciate your attention to this matter. The issues uncovered in the court documents cast serious doubt on the integrity of the guidelines developed by WPATH and PATHA. With the US Supreme Court recently agreeing to hear arguments on state bans of medical interventions for gender questioning minors and more documents set to be unsealed, WPATH's future as an influential organisation is uncertain. Given these concerns, it is crucial to reassess the Health New Zealand/PATHA relationship. The coalition government's focus on evidence-based policies is commendable, and it is important that scientific integrity is not compromised by political interference. That ends Simon's letter, and he's got some endnotes and citations after that. And of course, I'll put the link to it at the bottom. So as you can see, he's made a very good case, an excellent case. And the question is, will it be read thoroughly and actually digested? Because so far, we've had our politicians and our government, like in many places so far, you know, not just in New Zealand, have been so reluctant to go near any of this or touch it. They have just decided to rely totally on TQ plus lobby groups, and it's starting to unravel. So I really hope that our politicians take notice of this, and especially our Minister for Health, Dr. Shane Reti. Okay, so I invite you to go and have a read through the letter yourself. As I said, the link will be below, and it's an open letter, so it's free to share. Thank you. Bye.